Hey, everybody. Welcome to Strategies to Getting Someone to Go to a Healthcare Provider When They Don't Want to Go. My name is Catherine Quinlan, and I'm going to join Teepa and the other members of the PAC team throughout this webinar today. First, I'd like to share with you an overview of what's going to be covered. Today, Teepa's going to talk about some of the different types of reactions people have when they notice changes in cognition, whether it's themselves or someone they care about. And then she's going to explore a little deeper which type tends to be the most resistant. And then how, where, when, and who should have the first conversation about what they're noticing, and maybe what is the first step. Then you'll watch some role plays where Teepa and the team will take turns role playing to figure out what might work and what might not. And then she'll discuss whether seeking a medical provider actually means seeking out a physician or a nurse. So let's get started.
Our topic for today has a whole lot to do with something else, which is how do you get somebody to a healthcare provider when they don't want to go? And before we talk about that population, I really do want to sort of make sure that we're talking about people who are living with dementia, because there are some people in the world that won't want to go see a healthcare provider, and it's not everybody likes to go to the doctor. And some people simply going to the doctor has never been something they've enjoyed doing. And some people have never gone to the doctor very often. They actually don't find medical professionals to be a part of their life, nor do they feel like they're all that important to them. And they're sort of a mind that, you live till you die. And if you get sick, you get sick, and you get sick and you die. And that's how it works. So getting to go see a doctor just is not part of what their daily or their lifetime habit is. So here's the challenge. If we're the ones noticing something different is going on, what is it we want to do? Well, if we believe that somebody could do something and there's a reason to do something, we'll want to go get somebody assessed. And the reason we want to do that when we're noticing changes in cognition is, quite frankly, what we're seeing might actually not be dementia. And the only way to figure that part out is to see somebody who does know something about what causes changes in abilities that are not dementia. That might be something that could be treated or fixed or managed differently. So if that's the case, then we do want somebody to get seen. The tricky part is getting somebody seen. And what I would say is it breaks down into 4 groups. And so our very first job is to figure out this human being. The person has noticed they're having changes also, and they really want to get it looked into. So if that's the case, are we going to have trouble getting them to go see a health professional? No, that's fine. That turns out to probably be 20% of everybody who gets a cognitive shift that ends up being dementia. About 20% of people have also noticed, but they also want to go get it looked at. It's actually a small group. Most people who notice as well are a little nervous about getting it looked at if what they think it is dementia. So getting it looked at is a little scary. It's not like just finding out, oh, I took my blood pressure's up a little bit. I maybe should go get that looked at. These are the same people who are like, yeah, I'm gonna keep track of it and see if it stays up, because this might have been just like a one-time thing. I checked my blood sugars. My blood sugar's up. Oh dear. Well, I'm gonna be more careful eating. Oh, I checked my weight. My weight's up. Well, you know what? I'm just gonna try to be careful. And there's a group of people who get it and they don't actually still want to go see the doctor, but they sort of know something's cooking. But, let's just hold off on it a little bit longer. I'm going to try to manage it. So that's a subset in some ways of that first group. So these are people who aren't resistive to going. but they also are not eager beavers to go because there's such a stigma attached to getting a diagnosis of dementia. And there's a real fear that what I'm experiencing might be dementia. So maybe it's just stress, though. I think it's just stress. Well, I'm not sleeping well. I'm pretty sure if I could work on getting better sleep, I think that's what it is. But what I keep doing is dancing around actually going to see anybody who could help me figure out, is it or isn't it? And I can keep that dance going long enough that whatever I had that actually wasn't dementia could turn into dementia by the time I get around to getting it looked at, because undiagnosed, untreated sleep problems, undiagnosed, untreated hypertension, undiagnosed, unmanaged diabetes, high levels of stress over long periods of time are all high risk things for developing dementia. So this is that, they've noticed, but have they noticed enough? And because of the fear of dementia, they're preventing themselves from actually getting seen for what it could be because we have such a stigma. Now, the second grouping is somebody who actually noticed that something was changing before you, and you were the one that was slow to admit that it wasn't normal aging and it should get looked at. Because this is another group, and that turns out that that group is somewhere around 30%. 30% of everybody who gets dementia is in the ballpark that they notice first. And they're pretty sure something's going on, but when they talk to other people, including sometimes their kids or their spouse, they say, I'm not thinking straight. I can't find the thing when you want to say things. I can't find the thing you say. Like right now, I can't think of it. But those around them are so, well, we all have trouble finding words, Mom. I don't know that you have I'm not sure it's chill out, Mom. You're getting all anxious, and it's really not, people have this kind of, remember Aunt Mary? Well, you remember Aunt Mary ended up with dementia. Well, I know, but at first it wasn't dementia. She didn't have dementia for a long time. So that's a group that actually does notice, and the biggest challenge for them is getting everybody else on the same page with them. And they are typically not a challenge to get to a healthcare provider. The more interesting, challenging situation is finding a healthcare provider who's actually going to be able to do a good evaluation and who understands that about 30% of people who get dementia actually are able to say, I think what I'm experiencing is a change in cognition. I believe it might be related to a progressive condition. I think I might be experiencing early symptoms of dementia. And that the healthcare provider doesn't go, well, I'm not sure that's what it is. A lot of people who think they have dementia, they're just depressed. You know what? We're going to see if you aren't depressed or you aren't anxious, or maybe you're having problems with your thyroid. And they aren't really responding to the level of, I revealed, and now I feel like I'm not getting listened to. And it's like, well, you're getting older, and so this population actually has been vocal at a higher degree than previously, saying, wait, this isn't fair. I actually brought it up, and I'm not being regarded as being competent and being able to self-manage. And I say, well, if you have dementia, you can't. And it's like, well, that's not true. I actually can for quite some time if I have awareness. In other words, I don't struggle with anosognosia. So it's almost like we have to help people who are living with dementia learn the language of physicians so they can say, actually, I do not have anosognosia. So that may be what's confusing you. Because at that point, we're talking about people who are seeking support. The tricky part is not getting them to the physician, it's getting them to the right medical support provider. And that's actually as tricky as some of these other things we're wanting to talk about in this session. Then we have the person who's not noticing and thinks you're up to something. And we have the person who's not noticing but is amenable to going. So of those two, which one do you think is going to be the one that refuses to go to the medical provider? And it's not even like a trick question. So when we have somebody who's not noticing, it could be that they're amenable. That turns out to be a very small population. the biggest population that we're concerned about and that everybody talks about, unfortunately missing the top group, the second group, and the bottom group, is this group that is not noticing it and thinks you're up to something, thinks you're up to no good, thinks you're trying to prove something, you think I have dementia. So here's the thing we want to think about. If I have somebody in that gang, there are a couple of items to have immediately available if we're going to do a better job. Number one, we need to know who that human being is. What's important to them? Who have they been? What kind of decisions and how have they made decisions in the past? What kind of changes are we noticing? What did they notice about the changes? Are they blaming others? Are they sort of better off knowing what's going on in the morning than in the afternoon? Is there a human being that's a good match for them, that seems to be less likely to raise their fur, less likely to cause them to resist, less likely to cause problems? And then the fourth piece of what we want to do is set the stage. So we don't want to go into this at any moment in time and start bringing things up. We want to think about place. We want to think about space. We want to think about who. We want to think about when, where, how to bring it up. And the very first thing we want to do is ask the person's perspective. And then we want to do a reflection and an acknowledgement of their perspective, and then figure out what happens next. Should we continue or should we call a timeout? And that's it. That's all we should do right now. We're going to back off and think about what we found out.
So, what we found out is the person most likely to resist seeing a medical provider is someone who has an awareness that something is changing for them and they think you're up to something. So this is the person we're going to focus on in the next part of the webinar. Now you're going to witness Teepa and the team do some role playing where they're going to explore those things Teepa just mentioned that are important, to know the person, who they are, to notice what they're aware of or not aware of, to who's the best person to raise the concern and have a conversation, what's the best environment for this to happen in, when, and can you get their perspective? Can you reflect and validate their point of view and their perspective? And then what? So join the team. Here we go.
So what we're going to do now is I'm going to be a person, and we're going to give you guys a chance to try out some of those things I was just talking about. So I'm going to be one person, and then I'll be somebody different. And we're working on higher level skills of how are we going to start this conversation. Okay. So the first person I'm going to be is I am going to be a lady who used to run a yarn store, and I used to teach knitting and crocheting, and I used to help people select which yarns they would do, which ones yarns they would purchase, and then I would help them pick patterns, and I would help them size the patterns and modify the patterns to sort of better meet their needs. And it's always been a niche market, but over the last 5 years, I'm giving it up. People are so fussy and so particular, and they want to learn how to do something, and they aren't willing to put the time or effort into it. And so they make it sound like you haven't done what you've told them. I mean, if I tell them once, I tell them over and over, you've got to rehearse, and you've got to hold this needle, and you've got to move the other one. And it just got to be too much. And then there was the suppliers, they were things that I didn't ask for. And then when I would get them back, I couldn't find, because the girl that I had that was supposed to keep the records, she didn't do it. And so it's just, it got to be where it was more of a mess. And I was spending money trying to get things to work. And then she didn't even pay the electrical. And I know I gave her the check And I told her to do it, and they turned off the power in the store. And it was too much. And I said enough. So that was last month. And my daughter said, Mom, I think something's happening. I think something's going on. And I said, well, what do you think's going on? Well, I think you have something wrong with your brain. And so, there's nothing wrong with my brain. I'm going to tell you what happened. And she got to hear the spiel again. And then she said, well, Mom, I think we should go see somebody. And I said, I don't need to see anybody. I'm not depressed. And she made the mistake of saying, no, Mom, I don't think you're depressed. I think you have like dementia or something. You think I have what? Where'd you get an idea like I have dementia? Where's that coming from? Well, the girl you talked to, Mom, the girl you hired, she said you never gave her the check. You said you were going to give her the check. You didn't give her the check. I did too give her the check. I know I gave her the check. Okay, so this has already happened. And so the daughter has decided she needs help. So she's brought one of you people in. So who would like be the person that the daughter brought in? Who wants to give it a try to see if you could use some of those skills we talked about? And we can talk through it beforehand because I'm going to let you guys talk as a group beforehand. And we'll go back to those things I said. So what do you know about me? So you can just talk first before you make your decision of who's going to help. Because I can tell everybody's chomping at the bit to help this woman, because you can all tell she's going to be a piece of cake to get to a medical provider. So what do you think, why is it that we're all feeling that, oh, this is going to be bad? So go ahead and talk about what is it about this woman that makes everybody feel like, ugh.
Well, she's part of why I'm kind of hesitating is because I know she's going to be agitated, and I'm not exactly sure which words to use that would keep, make her feel more comfortable, that I'm not here to attack or I'm not here to take over.
Okay, so Shelley, you're right. What's a really important thing that we really want to be clear about? You're right. She will, if she thinks you were hired by whom?
By her daughter.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That she's going to think that I don't have her best interest at heart, or that I don't want to hear from her.
Okay, so that's a concern, that because her daughter brought you in, that her daughter is up to something. And if you're not careful, you'll be aligned with the daughter, not with the mom.
Right.
Okay, so that becomes a real important thing. Carolyn, what do you got?
Yeah, well, I mean, the fact that the daughter has already brought up the D word, it's raised her defenses now.
Okay, so the daughter already said the dementia word. Mm-hmm. What did Mom say?
Who told you that? Or
what else did Mom say? What did she say initially?
Oh, that she didn't.
Depression.
Yeah, Alejandra's got it, that she didn't have depression. So where the daughter already put her foot in the mud was that Mom thought the daughter was talking about depression. Mm-hmm. And then the daughter said, we're not talking about depression, Mom, we're talking about dementia. So, so we have two problems. One, Mom's best guess, if there's something going on, is that her daughter would have thought it was depression. Her daughter doesn't believe it's depression. She believes it's dementia. Okay. And then what else is an issue? What else do you know is an issue? So Shelley's nervous about the language, the words to use. Okay. What else?
I was wondering if, since she's kind of had the business kind of blow up and she's blaming it on, the other girl or these people, but she's had something that she really cares about and she's competent in, and for whatever reason, she's not competent and it's basically all just unraveled and blown up. So I think that would be a pretty big issue of feeling incompetent and out of control.
So this business may be something for us to focus with her on, the loss of that business. Wow. So you help people with knitting and crocheting and modifying patterns? I can't even imagine. Whoa. That takes a lot of skill and expertise. Yeah. And then dealing with suppliers and different yarns and all that stuff. Wow. That's a lot. Wow. I'm impressed. So what can we admire about this woman? What did she value? What did she say? What were things that she valued? Because we want to go to what are her values.
Helping others.
So she liked the idea that she was able to help other people. And that's when that wasn't working. That's when she was done teaching. Yep. So she knew something other people didn't know. What else? What else did she value?
I think she valued the fact that she was able to actually make a finished product. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she could produce things. She could make things, but not only could she produce them, she could do variations of them, and she could help other people figure out how to modify things. So she was really pretty flexible in her thinking at some point in her life. She was able to take, and she's a real problem solver. Okay. So what are some areas where we're noticing she's having some shifts or changes?
From what I remember, Tifa, I thought it was more business related. Paying bills, I thought, was one of the points she brought up.
So the details of business management, like paying bills and orders and getting the payment done correctly and sent in for the light bill, the electric bill. So timing, so her sense of timing and immediate recall. And that flexibility, that ability to take things and modify so that there's a good product coming out. That sounds like that's been challenged. So given those things that you know about, who do you want to talk to first and more? Do you want to spend time with her? Do you want to talk more with the daughter? Is there other data that you want? Do you want to go look at my list of things that we want to think about? You want to go back to that list? Let's go take a look at that again.
For me, I think I'd want to maybe spend a little time with the daughter.
Okay.
Find out about the other people in her life and who she might have a trusting relationship with, because the daughter has kind of proven by what she said, and probably has eroded, if they had trust, she's eroded it with the conversation that they had. So I'd probably be thinking in the back of my head, who else can be involved that the mom might actually like better, trust more, to be able to eventually have this conversation.
Okay. Do you want to find out what the daughter's and mom's previous relationship was other than this episode? Or because what does dementia sometimes cause family members to do that very few other conditions bring up?
Well, I think dementia can cause dynamics that already were strained to be worse.
Right, to be worse. Mhm.
Yeah, so if they were already iffy, this will push them off the cliff. But this can also be the one time that if my mom has always been like this and like this and like this, and I thought I could just bring it up and she would be able to work with me on it because mom used to be flexible. She was a good problem solver. So I thought she would have noticed what I noticed, which is, Mom, you're making, I mean, you lost the business. I mean, the bills didn't get paid. And how could you be thinking that is just depression? I mean, why would you even think depression?
Right.
Because what do we know about family members and the word dementia and the knowledge about dementia? What happens? Are people informed? Are they knowledgeable?
No.
So because they don't always have good skill and knowledge ahead of time, they think that bringing something up, they're just trying to be helpful. So it might be important to find out whether this is a long-term sort of relationship or whether this is the first time the daughter's put her foot in her mouth and that it may be retrievable.
Mhm.
And so that maybe she does have the ability to back herself up. And that may be, in PAC, that might be a place where we might look for her to really do an authentic apology. Mom, I know that I really made you angry and I scared you and I surprised you when I said the word dementia because you were thinking at worst we were talking about depression. And I wish that that's where that was it. But I'm worried because I mean, I seriously, I don't know. I've never actually heard you and seen you quite like this before. And I guess I'm just scared. Now, what happens with that?
I think it kind of depends, on their relationship and how the mom is. Because if the mom is really nurturing and wants to be mom, because moms want to be moms, then that might soften her.
Right. And so this is that moment where you're right, Carolyn, going and finding out more from the daughter and about that relationship could really help us pick a better path of travel for the two of them. Because one of the risky things about being the third party is let me come in and save the day rather than empower the daughter to become the person that her mom needs right now. Maybe if there's capacity for that to happen, because the daughter did back up a little bit and come and seek support rather than trying to push forward further. And so dementia is that tricky little business where we really do want to take a step back, even with the daughter, and say, tell me some more about your mom's history with you. I mean, is this sort of a weird thing or is this a common thing for you guys to have this kind of difference? So it's an opportunity for those kind of explorations. So what else do we want to find out? You said who would be are there any good friends? Are there any sort of things? Anything else you want to find out from the daughter's perspective?
I think I'd want to know more about what the daughter had noticed. Just give me some more details on how long had she noticed it. And even what's your mom's does your mom have a primary care physician and does she have a good relationship with him or her? What's the relationship with her current care providers?
Okay.
Like to go to the doctor or not? Has she always had a fever? That kind of thing. I'd be interested in.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Carolyn, about does she even go to the doctor when she's sick, or is she one of those people that never goes because nothing's ever wrong, right? Or until it's the very last minute, because that'll influence it too.
Right, and she may have a life, maybe she hasn't been to the doctor in 40 years because she doesn't trust doctors, and that's not all of a sudden going to change. So,
right. And so the entry into a medical support or a healthcare provider, we may want to look less at a physician and maybe elsewhere as our first healthcare option rather than a physician who's sort of head of the ship. What else are you thinking about from the daughter? Anything else you want to find out?
Would we turn to, or would we ask about faith and spiritual practices, and whether there's someone she trusts in that realm to talk about some of this?
Well, we might look for another guide, whether it's a legal, a financial, a spiritual, a life person that she has a lot of trust in, that she feels comfortable with. So we're looking for somebody that she's got a comfort level with, but also has a relationship of feeling like there's a level of respect.
Mm-hmm.
So not a true authority, because mom hasn't shown that she necessarily responds well to authority, because she quit the shop when it didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, I would wonder along those lines, has the daughter, have you ever talked with your mom about decision making, and is there, a healthcare and financial power of attorney that's been selected?
All that kind of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so we might want to take a step back and even find out if this daughter is actually got any authority at all to act for her mom, or if she's concerned about her mom and she does not yet have healthcare power of attorney, and nobody does. In which case, let's pause a second, because before we move forward into a healthcare range, we want to find out who is calling the shots here.
Yeah, and along, again, kind of attached to that, as we start peeling the onion back, what I would also wonder is, are there any other children? And is there because I know from my own experience, my youngest brother is like, he could get either of my parents to do absolutely anything. Yeah. So figuring out who's the golden child, if there is in fact one. Because
that's right. So who's the baby that mom may try to please? Is there a baby involved who can get her to do things because for a different reason? Because I want you to, because I need you to, because I'm scared if you don't, something horrible will happen. So please, 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 mom. Okay. Whereas nobody else can get that to happen. So it doesn't always have to be an authority figure. It has to be either someone that you trust or someone that you have responsibility for that can pull the responsibility card out, or the emotional responsibility card out. All right, so let's say you do some conversation with the daughter. You did a good job, and what you found out is that she and her mom have never been the easiest to get along with, because they both like to do it the way they like to do it. And so she's always had opinions about her mom should never have opened the yarn store to start with. I mean, she didn't, that was one headache from the beginning. If it wasn't one thing, because she had to help her out with setting up the whole inventory thing, and she went over it multiple times. And that's why they hired the girl to help mom, because she couldn't keep up with the computer program. She kept messing it up. And so it was just easier to hire the girl that came in, and all she was supposed to do was do the inventory and the ins and the outs and the billing for the customers and manage the register. Because mom just, she would give stuff away. It was always an issue, but it's mom's project. I mean, she can do whatever she wants to with it. And I tried to help her multiple times with it, but it's just, she's never been good at that side of it. I mean, she can take yarn, honest to God, and make a wedding dress. I mean, the woman is spectacular at that, but she cannot keep up with a computer worth crap. I mean, and it's never been great, but God, I mean, lately it was so much worse. I don't even know why she started the whole store thing. I tried to talk her out of it, but okay, so if that's the case, if that's the backstory, so there's been issues related to this thing she just lost. What are you guys now thinking about the daughter?
I'm thinking she's not the one to have the conversation with her mom.
Right. And the more you associate yourself with her, this is going to go downhill very quickly. And it doesn't even have anything to do with dementia.
Right.
It has to do with a failure of a woman that's never experienced that many failures. And actually the daughter, do this with your hand. This has been going on a while. The daughter totally missed the early signals. And so did mom, but the daughter totally missed that this has probably been happening for a good bit longer. Because she just wrote it off as mom's never been good at that. And that's one of the most common statements with dementia is, well, mom's never been good at that. It was really when she started arguing with customers. She's never done that before. And so what you've really solidified is aligning yourself in any way with coming in from the daughter's perspective is not a healthy sort of thing if you're going to try to work with this woman. Okay, so what else did you want to ask the daughter? So one of you can do the interview with the daughter a little bit more. So you've established some of the relationship. It's a good idea that you get a little more interviewing practice. So go ahead. Who's willing to work with the daughter?
So I was curious, you had mentioned a bit earlier that I think I heard you correctly, that there were some other brothers or sisters that you had. I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, well, you can forget that. I mean, because they're not involved. I mean, one of them's in Tennessee and the other one has kids. I mean, yeah, no, I'm it. You know, if anything's going to happen, it's going to be me. I mean, and that's pretty much how it usually is. I mean, if something has to happen, I'm the one. I'm not married. I'm on my own. So I'm the one that gets called in whenever it's time to have some issues going on.
My face up, sorry. So one of them's in Tennessee, and is the other one local, or are they somewhere different as well?
Well, they aren't that far away. I mean, like they're like 2 hours away, but they might as well be 5 states away because, I mean, they've got soccer, they've got the band, they've got, you know, if Girl Scout, I don't know, it's one thing or another. Every time I say, could you come up and help me? Because just dismantling the store.
Right.
Because, you know, she's supposed to clear the space out, which I've talked to her about. And she doesn't seem to get that she can't just, I mean, she's paying rent. I mean, I'm helping to get those bills paid because she keeps saying she gets it. She doesn't.
So can I go back one step? Is the store no longer functioning now?
No, it's got closed. I mean, we had to close it.
But we're holding the space now.
Well, because she's got all the crap in there.
Yeah. Gotcha.
I mean, all the yarn.
Yeah.
God forbid I say crap. She's got all the yarn in there and she's got pattern modifications and either we pay for that place right now or we pay for storage because she can't get organized. She's gone in there 3 times and she spends like hours and I stop by to see how it's going. It's just more stuff out. Oh. And now it's even more disorganized.
Gotcha. So instead of actually getting things packed up, it's more of an unboxing kind of process that seems to be happening.
I mean, I don't even know what she's doing now. But last time I went over and said, Mom, let me help you. She was like, leave it alone. And, you know, she was almost in tears because she couldn't figure out what to do, but she didn't want any help.
Time out now?
Yep.
Yeah. So, and, you know, I know you mentioned that your siblings are, you know, it's not that they're not necessarily way far away, but they've got
right
going on. But, you know, so I wonder, and please don't take this the wrong way, but I mean, how's your mom's relationship with your siblings? Is it like with you or is there a different kind of relationship with your?
Well, I mean, I think I'm the one who, if something needs to get done, she turns to me. But if she wants to spend time and have fun and go shop for yarn, she'll go see my sister down in Charlotte. Because they're the shoppers. So they'll go out and she'll actually help her buy more stuff. So, I mean, the last thing I need her to do is to go down there and then buy more crap that we don't even know what we're doing with the crap we're getting. So the two of them, when they're together, it's like, there's nothing wrong. Everything's fine. Because when she goes down there, Mom is like this place is she forgets everything that was wrong here. And it's like she's going to restart. Maybe she just needs some different, I mean, that happened already once.
Yeah. So it sounds like you kind of have your sister and you play different roles in your mom's life.
Yeah, she's entertainment and I'm running business as usual.
Yeah. So, I just wonder.
Okay, so I'm going to pause us. So are you finding anybody else in the family right now or anybody else that's been mentioned so far? Nope.
I think the sister could possibly help, but
how much work are you going to have to do? And
yeah, tons.
Yeah. So how many of you at this point think maybe it's just best if you step up now and help out? Because probably you're not going to, I mean, you can dig around a little bit more, but there isn't anybody. Let's just, there's not a whole lot of depth to the field here.
Right.
So now what? So what do you think the first step is? Because I think this is an important first step for us to really process through when you have somebody who doesn't necessarily want to go to a medical provider. And it's relatively early in the disease. I mean, this is not somebody who has advanced dementia, who we could make the case, we've got to get somebody to do something because this is getting outright dangerous. They're not eating, it's not that yet that it's affecting the day-to-day health of the individual, but it's affecting the well-being and the potential future of this individual. And that's where a lot of people come into the system.
Now, I would feel like maybe thinking about how to build a relationship with the mom. How do I or whoever, but let's just say, how does a person figure out how to make an entry into mom's life?
Right.
Without being associated as being hired by the daughter.
Right.
To start building a relationship.
Yeah, I think along with Carolyn's idea, not maybe going in and having one or two or multiple interactions with this woman so that I'm just seen as a person, not the person that's coming to get her to make a change right away. Because that would seem a little difficult.
I was wondering if you could do something with the actual knitting or the yarns and actually come in and either need her help with a project that you're stuck in, or, I heard that you really have a lot of knowledge with these special yarns. And if there was some way you could do that and maybe get into the store that way as an ally, and you're doing with her and you're not going to fix anything, she's just going to show you something and then you're going to leave. If that was maybe an idea.
So you might choose a soft entry. And the soft entry is because there doesn't seem to be a person in her life at this moment in time that she connects with and has a relationship with that we can find anyway, that we create a relationship opportunity where we figure out by working with her on something she values, can we get to a place where we can start to address the issue of the elephant in the room, which is something is happening here, and we don't know quite what's going on. If we ask her to do one of these patterns or one of these things with us, we've heard she's really good at it, and I know her shop is closed, but I really would appreciate, I got your name from the place, and I just wanted to follow up and see if you were still taking any private clients or not, because I really could use a help. I'm okay at knitting, but I'm not great. And I started something and now I don't know what to do with it. And the yarn was fairly expensive. So you're thinking that's one direction to go. So we'll pursue that direction in a little bit, but let's go back and let's say, well, no, we're going to just go in. And the daughter told her mom that she hired a consultant. Well, because she's, she wants to get this dealt with because she's frustrated and she knows that something needs to happen and she doesn't know what else to do because she knows she can't handle it and she doesn't have anybody. So she called her mom and told her that she talked to a consultant and she's planning on having the consultant come over.
Wow. That was a lot of discussion. So what they were figuring out is, who is it who is best to have this conversation? Is it family? Well, it didn't seem like that's a good fit for this circumstance. Is there a friend? Someone in the community? That's not going to work either. So now we've turned to a professional. So now we're going to explore how to get started. How will a PACT professional start the conversation?
And so now you guys are going to be coming to see mom as the consultant the daughter hired. So did you get to pick everything you wanted to pick? No. Is that possible that will happen for people who are trying to help?
Oh, absolutely.
So you might be a friend. I mean, because I get asked as a friend to come see somebody sometimes, or to talk about a concern, because I'm happen to be pretty skilled at this stuff. So people say, I have a friend, would you come talk to them? Because I think there's something going on, but I don't know for sure. And it depends on whether people know that I have a background or not, as to whether or not they're really suspicious, or whether they're familiar and, sort of they know the name and they go, oh, so my daughter thinks I have dementia, huh? So it's dealing with that. So I want us to sort of work through and give yourself a chance. So we have somebody who's been asked to see, and instead of pushing further, the daughter backed up and sought support, which is actually a huge plus, because way too many times people don't approach it once or twice or 3 times. They'll approach it 5, 10, 15 times, and then they call for help. Or they even get legal issues involved, or they wait till there's an emergency. And those are things that can happen and do happen. And that's what's going to happen if we don't figure out a way to relate to this lady and get her to a place where she's not so uncomfortable, at least raising up concerns with someone. So she does have concerns. She said what she thought people would think. And that's as far as she can go with it right now. So that's where we might want to start. So who wants to try to dive in the pool? Because this is this rehearsal that people don't do before they start doing the real deal. That if you haven't thought through and worked through this whole thing and found somebody to rehearse with, when you get in there that first time, you're doing it solo. And then maybe we'll even back up and try it as a family member to see what you could try. Do you want to see me interact with somebody first, or do you want to just try it? Would you like to? We have a video that we can take a look at if you'd like. So Corey, do you want to share a video of, this was a question that came up when I was doing a program on screening. And one of the people said, well, what if you have somebody who doesn't want to go to screening, doesn't think there's anything wrong with them? So let's see what happens when we bring that up.
Mm-hmm. You're not wanting to talk about this, are you? Can you tell me about it? I know you don't want to talk about it. Can you tell me why? Help me understand why you don't want to talk about it. It would help me if we could talk about the why.
Deborah, I don't think this is any of your business.
So it's more that you don't feel like you want to talk to me about it? Well, let me ask you this, because I'm not wedded to the idea that you talk to me. What I don't want to do is let's not talk about it at all. Who would you rather talk about it with? Because I'm not trying to push my agenda. I'm just worried. And I want you to have somebody to talk about it with. Is there like the minister, the priest, the rabbi? Is
her friend Ruth.
Your friend Ruth. Yeah, well that'd be okay. That's a place to start. She's a nurse. Well, that's even better. Now, what I may do, hey Ruth, I think Mom may want to talk with, or Deborah may want to talk to you about something. When she does, I'm going to ask you for a huge favor.
Okay.
I don't want you to say, oh, I'm sure it's nothing. And I'm also going to ask you not to say, well, you probably have dementia. I've noticed that. I'm going to ask you to real hard, and I don't know what you were thinking, whether you were thinking there was or there wasn't. You've noticed some things. I'm going to ask you for a huge favor. Let's not jump there because I'm afraid she'll clam up. And you're the one person right now that she feels like she has any relationship where she has any trust with. So when she asks you, do you think something's going on? I want you to say, well, tell me what you're thinking. Okay. Well, my daughter said something. Uh-huh. Well, I know your daughter said something. Have you noticed anything about maybe trying to use equipment or getting places or anything you're less interested? So what do you think you might use as your guide of how to approach this? But again, what did you notice? Because the very first thing we've got to do in the early stages is find out, are they aware or not? And if they are aware, are they anxious? Or are they wanting to hide? Well, I already have a hint here that she probably has a little awareness.
So, Corey, cool. All right, so what were some things you noticed there?
There was a curiosity about, okay, if it's not me that you want to talk to, who would that other person be?
Right. So giving her a choice, because this is a woman who likes to be in control. So is there somebody else you'd rather talk to than me? I'm not wedded to that. I just don't want us not to talk about this whole thing. Yep. What else?
Well, it's also important that if another person's identified, that you talk to that person to help be prepared. Well.
Right. So what we don't want to do is just have another person going in without that sort of awareness and knowledge kind of thing ahead of time of what to do or what not to do. Because one of the things we don't want to do is end up with, yikes, okay, here we go. Now we have another party in the stew, and it's not necessarily going to improve anything. Okay. So what else? Anything else? What'd you notice about positioning and pausing?
Yeah, you were in a physical space with her. She actually came from wherever you were standing to her, but got below her eye level or lower than she was.
Yep. And the actual screen that I'm noticing that I'm pulling questions from, just so we have that, is this one. Can you see? It's called the AD8. So it's any challenges with trying to make choices or decisions? Do you find yourself sort of really struggling with, is that working? Is that not working? Hobbies and activities, repeating the same things over and over, having trouble how to learn something new, correct month or year, complicated financials, remembering appointments, thinking or memory. So if we ask the daughter in this case to look over this, what would we get? Change, not change, or I don't know. What do you think you've got so far?
I think the daughter's probably going to say that that a lot of these things have changed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the daughter would probably, out of the 8, probably say at least 7 of them are definitely different with her mom. Yeah. And that's why she's in such acute distress, more than likely, is because when she looks at this many options and that many changes, that's what's causing her brain to become so distressed. So if these many things are changing, whether her mom knows it or not, how much distress is mom in because they're changing, whether she knows they're changing or not? How likely is it that she is struggling with both anxiety and depression? And because she's struggling with anxiety and depression and she has brain changes, she also has an element of not taking care of herself. Whereas before we were saying, well, she's not acutely sick. And it's like, well, it's true, but she's probably doing more comfort eating or not eating. She's probably drinking more caffeine and trying to bump herself up. Or she's being super careful and not doing this and not doing that and hoping that by doing those things that it makes something better. So she has actually more than likely all three of these things going on in this moment. She's both anxious and depressed. She has acute changes because everything's changed. She used to go to the shop. Now, when she goes to the shop, she's not being successful. She's not doing things that she did. She's having lots of trouble with her relationship with her daughter. That used to be her go-to, and that's not working anymore. So we have a person who more than likely doesn't just have a dementia. More than likely, we've got some depression, some anxiety, and some acute cognitive changes that are coming from this combination of things going on around her and her inability to get her balance because everything's shifting on her. So coming into this situation, how scary would it be for her to go to a medical provider right now? And how easy would it be for a medical provider to start just throwing things into the pot to see what we can get? So the question is this really at this moment the most important thing to do to get her to a medical provider? Or is the more important thing to do to establish someone who can provide her some support so that when she goes to the medical provider, we actually get a good evaluation of her?
I think the second point.
Oh, and so that's one of the biggest mistakes everybody makes. When I have someone who's unaware of the changes and all we're focused on is getting them to a medical provider, more than likely, even if we get them to the medical provider, what we're going to find is it's not an accurate reading of what the person is able to do. Because what we've done is we've put somebody who more than likely is either anxious or depressed, is possibly struggling with some changes that may indeed be dementia. But on top of that, they probably have acute shifts back and forth because they're struggling with all this stuff going on. And then we throw them in with a medical provider that they're anxious about. And we may not have done them a service or anyone else a service by moving so hard and so fast toward getting them seen, instead of trying to figure out, okay, so what's working and what's not working for them, whether it's dementia or whether it isn't dementia, and what kind of support do they want in place and need in place before we confront or address the medical arena. Because medical arenas are pretty overwhelming when you try to get an evaluation. And we're often talking about a 2 to 6 hour process for somebody who's already frayed and a little iffy. So sometimes when the very thing we want them to go see the doctor, what we want to think about, do this, is let's get a little bite of something that they could get seen for. And let's not try to take on the waterfront. Let's figure out a small thing that getting looked at might get us to a different place. So we back off of some of this other stuff and we're just focusing on, since all this came down, how's your sleep been? Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me. Everything's shifted around here. So I'm wondering if, just even looking at how well you're sleeping, let's talk about that. So the first trick is figuring out how you're going to start your relationship. And then what's your focus going to be? Because you want to think very small, because the daughter thought really big and that got nowhere.
So now we've established, where do you start as an outside consultant? They decided to start with the family, get as much information as they could, and then move on to starting a relationship with the person who needs support. And she realized that maybe going to the doctor is a very big picture thing and it might be too much. So they've decided to focus on the relationship and support right where she is now. And keep that focus narrow and specific. So let's see what happens.
So even though you're not the daughter, what are you going to go in with? What's your very first thing when you go in? An apology? Yep. You're going to start with an apology. I really hate being here. I'm really sorry I'm here. I hate we're both here. I'm pretty sure you're not going to like this. I'm not sure I like it. But I also know your daughter loves you. And I don't think she's doing it because she wants to cause trouble. Could we talk?
So I have a novel idea.
Go for it.
My idea is, why don't you let one of us play the mom and you be the consultant?
Sure. I could do that because it sounds like folks are uncomfortable being my consultant.
So I'd be happy to be the mom.
You'd be happy to be the mom. Cool.
I'll play the mom if you want to play the consultant.
Yeah. Okay. Ring-a-ling-a-ling.
Hello.
Is this Carolyn Lukert?
It is.
Hi, I'm Teepa Snow.
Oh, Teepa.
Yeah, I don't think we've met ever.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so either. Listen, I'm going to share some information with you, and I'm going to ask you for a big favor when I share it.
Okay, you're making me nervous.
I know I am, and I mean to a little bit. I don't want you to hang up on me.
All right. Well, I won't yet.
Okay. I got a call from your daughter.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me a little bit. I try to help families that are really struggling, sometimes working together.
Mm-hmm.
Families that really care about each other, but can't quite figure out how to talk with each other about important stuff.
Really? Well,
Yeah.
I wonder why my daughter's thinking that.
Yeah. I'm an occupational therapist by training.
Okay.
And one of the backgrounds I have, which we have in common, is I love knitting, crocheting, and my mom was an expert.
Oh, well, no, maybe we have a little common language here.
Probably a little common.
Good.
I know how to knit, purl, and I can run a cable.
Oh, well, all right then. I think I can do the same. I mean, I can do maybe a little bit more than that.
I bet you know a lot. From what I've heard, your daughter says you're like one of the premier people who can do patterns and modifications and pick yarns and help people.
I can.
Yeah, my skills are, like I've got like, I know enough to be dangerous.
Ah, I see. Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So and I think, the plus is that we have some things in common. The other piece, though, I don't want to lose is that I'm pretty sure your daughter loves you a lot, but I'm also pretty sure you're pretty ticked off at her right now.
Actually, I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some suggestions to me that I really don't appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like you guys are on real different pages.
Yep, we are.
Yeah. And she's wanting you to see somebody and do something about what's going on. And you're feeling like, that's not what my problem is.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I hear you.
And she's trying to tell me I have.
Yeah. So, and I'm not going to sit on either side of this. I just know that she's concerned, she's worried, and she was actually almost in tears at my office. So I think she's legitimately concerned. I don't think she's doing this because she's just being weird or sad or mean. I mean, what's your impression? I mean, are you concerned that she's up to something or anything like that?
Well, she's never she's never really been a big supporter of my business. I mean, she knew
Okay.
the whole knitting
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah, and the business lately, you had to, things got so crazy there, you had to shut it down. It wasn't going well.
I did, and I secretly, I think she probably was happy about that. Quite honestly.
Okay, so you're not sure, but what, she's thrilled that the business isn't operating, and maybe that's part of what's going on.
Yeah, kind of like that. You know, I told you
Yeah.
so.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, having very little background with the two of you, I can't say one way or the other, but I hear that you're not sure. And I guess what I'd like to do is meet with you at least and spend a little time seeing if we can figure out what's going on here and, what's going on between the two of you a little bit and see if we can get you guys in a better place for you to be able to work with each other on something.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
what's it's going to involve?
Well, I wanted to meet with you. I just didn't want to talk on the phone. I thought it would make more sense if we actually got together and had a conversation.
So are you wanting to come to my house? Is that what
Well, I didn't know whether it would work better your house. From what I hear, you still have the business, or we could go to a coffee shop.
but I think probably why don't you come to my house, because I don't want to be having this kind of conversation in a public place.
Okay. I mean, I'd be happy to do that. Or, I mean, if you'd like, you could come to my office, would that be better for you?
Maybe that would be better. Maybe
Okay.
I should just come to your office. That way I can get away if I need to. Yeah,
Sure. You've reached your limit. Well, you know what? While you're on your way over, I think I might actually, if we can set up a time, I may bring in a sweater that could use a little help.
I was going to offer that maybe if you need some help with something, knitting wise and coffee.
Well, I'll
to
show you something that I'd love to be able to rescue in some fashion. I think I'm talking a pillow rather than a sweater.
a pillow. Okay. Whatever. I can help you with that.
Yeah. So here's what I'm wondering. What's on your agenda for either this afternoon or tomorrow?
Well, this afternoon I'm busy. I got
Okay.
things going on, but tomorrow I could carve out some time for you.
Okay. Would it be better morning or afternoon for you?
Morning for sure. And
Morning for sure.
And would you have some coffee, or should I bring some with me?
Absolutely. I have coffee. I always have coffee. Do you put anything in yours?
Nope. I like it black. Nothing.
Black. Do you like it strong, or do you like it sort of not so strong?
Strong.
Then you're in good shape. I won't need to modify the pot.
All right.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I am going to give you the address,
Okay.
but I'm also going to, I'm going to use this phone number. Do you get messages or texts on your phone?
I'm pretty good at reading texts. I'm not so good at sending them.
All right, well, what I'm going to do is send it over. And I'm here in town, so da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so pause.
So let's talk about how was Teepa successful at getting connected with Carolyn and getting to that first appointment. She connected with Carolyn on a personal level by using something that Carolyn valued, her knitting, and she made her an expert. She also gave her multiple choices so that Carolyn could feel in control, where she'd be more comfortable meeting, where she could be in control of how long it lasted. And then she also even offered her the choice of how a coffee should be made, strong or weak. She then offered that kind of support to meet Carolyn where she might need support by giving her familiar landmarks she could use to find the office. Then she gave her phone number and said that Carolyn could call if she got turned around, just like lots of people do. And she said she would check in herself. So let's see what happens now.
So let's talk about how I went about doing that. What worked, what didn't work? Why did I opt for what I opted for?
Well, for me, I can tell you from that, just my responses, which I tend to be pretty authentic. I was skeptical. Like I was trying to take every opportunity to kind of wiggle in a little skepticism there. But you did a good job of not like responding to that skepticism. Like you didn't fuel it, you didn't ignore it, but you didn't like try and dig into it.
Nope.
So that helped me kind of move on because you always had something else that you were ready to talk about.
Yeah, so we didn't go anywhere and stay there too long because we're just brushing the surface this time through. We got to go multiple layers around before we're going to be able to get to something that matters.
Right.
But I like the way that you went to, you needed her help first as the way to do the real connect, and then brought the daughter's thing in afterwards. That was making her feel a little more comfortable with you.
Yep.
And
So go ahead.
When she got a little nervous or kind of started, you kind of felt like she's starting to move away, you bring in knitting, kind of like, oh, well, I've got this. So there's always this pull, and you left this good emotional memory of she's coming and she's thinking, I'm going to help you with knitting. And that's kind of what you kept reinforcing. So it was that good. And then you kind of throw in a little bit and then you kind of back off again.
Yeah, because this is a woman who has lost her sense of purpose and value because she had to close the store. She's not getting those interactions. It's something that seems to be important to her. When I gave her the choice of her home, the store, or a common open space, she picked her home, which meant to me, my interpretation is the store is not a comfortable place anymore. And public is a little too overwhelming and scary. When I provided my office, that was more comfortable to her than me coming to her place. She could come to my place, so she chooses and she doesn't like it anymore, she'll leave. Because she likes to be in control. This is a woman who really does like to be in control of things. So first, what do you think my first base is going to be when I do get up with her? And I will probably have to double check in the morning. I know you said you had time this morning. I just want to double check that you're going to be able to make it, because I'm making coffee and I'm going to have it ready in about I can have it ready in about, how long do you think? So I put it in my phone because I have your address as this. Is that right? And this is where I'm at. So it says it'll take about 15 minutes. Is that what yours is showing you? Or did it say that it would take it a little longer?
It says 15 minutes. Yeah.
So it says 15. And I'm close to, I don't know if you've ever shopped at Kroger's down there, but I'm very close to where the Kroger's is there.
Where Kroger's is.
Okay, cool.
I'm pretty sure I can find it.
Okay, and you have my number.
I do.
If you get turned around by any chance, because there are 4 lanes there. So if you can't make the turn, you get turned around, let me know, because I can get you here from where a lot of people end up.
Well, I pretty much know my way around. So.
That's great. I have lots of people who think they do. And when they drive that highway in front, somehow it just tricks them. And when I first got here, I had that problem. So don't hesitate to call.
All right. But you won't hear from me. You'll see.
That's good. Well, if you're not here for 10 minutes after the coffee's done, I'll give you a call just to double check.
Marty.
So here's the message. Bottom line. In fact, for people living with dementia, what are we at PAC? What are consultants at PAC? First line medical providers. People are all too often wanting to seek out the evaluation when what we need is more support before we go forward to a place of medical evaluation. If we have somebody who's resistant to getting to a medical provider, then trying to shove them forward into a traditional medical system is probably going to not result in a good outcome for the people around who are trying to get that, or the person who's going forward, or the medical provider for that matter. Because what we're really missing in dementia is this in between of getting the thing that's going on figured out a little bit before we move it forward. So when we move it forward, we can share with permission some of the things that are going to be helpful for that person to have known before they get into the situation. And I think this is the missing link that I see over and over when we have somebody who doesn't want to go. And it could be because they don't even know there's anything wrong, or they're aware that something's wrong, but they don't want to get labeled and put in a box. And what isn't available in most places or spaces, or to most individuals, is how to do this level of support so they can go forward feeling supported, rather than feel like somebody's shoving them into a black box and there may be no escape from the black box. So the point of this exercise was a little bit different in that I want us to quit thinking there's some magic doctor out there or magic health provider out there, that if we can just get this person to that provider, then poof, the magic happens. And realize that what is needed in most cases is a better level of support under the family and under the person, so that when they move forward, they're supported and they're getting good feedback and good management. Otherwise, all we have is a new problem in front of us where somebody's trying to put a Band-Aid on a pressure sore. And we're the folks, people who are very familiar and comfortable with dementia are the people who can say, you know, this one's looking, okay, so let's sort this out. What's the primary thing that we're most concerned about? Is it she's fiscally vulnerable, or that she's physically vulnerable, or that she's emotionally vulnerable? Is it that she's isolated, or is it that we've got to figure out a better strategy other than shoving it at a medical professional, because I'm not sure a medical professional is what this many times people need as their first step. And so the point of my picking this topic and bringing it up and working it through is to have us take a step back from the idea that there's a magic person out there that we're going to send somebody to and they'll be able to wave the wand and figure everything out, and realize we have all the tools to help figure things out and support people so that when they move forward to get a diagnosis, we're in a better place to get the diagnosis, hear the diagnosis, and work with the diagnosis.
So
and that, to me, is the missing piece.
Yeah. Could we fast forward in this scenario where, so you and I have had a few meetings, you're develop a relationship, a trusting relationship, and now you feel like as a consultant, you're ready to maybe take a next step, and because we've built that relationship.
Yeah. So Carolyn, I'm gonna, when we first started this, I said, I don't want you to hang up on the phone with me.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. I don't want you to give up on our relationship because I want to bring something up.
Okay.
When we've been working together and talking together, I'm noticing that sometimes things are harder for you than I think they would have been. I'm seeing that when you're doing things with me, you're working really hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But sometimes it feels like, to me, that it's not, you're finding it not like it should be.
Yeah. There's definitely things that I'm finding it harder to do that I used to be able to do.
Yeah, that's what I'm noticing, is that it seems like you're feeling some shifts in, like, you used to be able to look at a pattern and just like that, you knew what stitches had gone into it and how they did it, and so how you could take it apart down to there. And, I also noticed that that when we looked at the computer, you were showing me the computer because we went to the store and you were showing me the computer, that when you looked at it, there was I saw in your face that you remembered that your daughter set that program up.
Mhm.
But when I was showing it to you, you realized you didn't remember that your daughter sent that program up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I've been kind of attributing that to just I haven't been sleeping so well.
Yeah. Yeah. And that might be, I mean, there's lots of reasons why, as we're getting on that upper edge of age, we're getting older, that things change. And what I am interested in is making sure that what's happening is not something that couldn't be dealt with somehow if we just got it looked at. Because I don't like letting things go when we shouldn't let things go. It's sort of like letting a thread unravel when all you had to do was knot it off. You just shouldn't have, like, why did you leave the tail there? You should have wove it in or something. And that's what this is feeling like. Like there's some pieces here that are not working well. And it doesn't make sense to just leave it because this isn't who you are.
Yeah, so I guess.
So yeah, I'm thinking that it makes sense to see somebody who's good at picking up on things that are changing. And I'm wondering for you, are you somebody who tends to go to doctors regularly or not go to doctors regularly?
Well, I've always done my annual checkup.
Okay, so you have. And the last time you did that was recently or it's been a while?
In fact, yeah, now that you say that, yeah.
You let it go. Well, the business, there's a lot of things going on. So there was lots of reasons to maybe not, mess with it because you were feeling okay. I'm a little concerned now. So how do you feel about your general practitioner? I mean, or do you have somebody who does specialty work or is it just general?
Just the GP. And
just the GP.
He's all right. I've been going.
How often, so you see him in between other than your annuals or is that it?
Because I'm never sick.
It's good to not see doctors too often. So historically, when you've gone to see him, have you ever gone in with an issue or is it just basically your annuals?
That's my annual. Never.
So you don't really do you have a sense of whether this guy is somebody who's going to know a fair amount about you or he'd be working sort of blind other than your lab values? And
I mean, he knows I've been healthy. He knows what he knows for annual visits. So
yeah. So has he ever gotten curious? Has he ever done anything that sort of established a baseline of like language abilities or memory skills or anything like that? Has he ever done anything like that?
Yep.
Well,
I'm not remembering them. Pardon.
Yeah, well, that's always a possibility when we're having problems. But I'm actually wondering whether seeing him is going to be as helpful as seeing somebody who actually specializes in changes or not. Whatever I think whichever you're more comfortable with as a starter.
So I was wondering, since we're talking about this doctor thing, since I'm having sleep problems.
Okay. So wanting to see somebody to see what's going on with sleep and maybe if there's something happening around sleep. So that would be a specialist. And so to get the referral to the specialist, my background says we're going to have to see the general practice person.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. My concern about it is that if we just go in there and say it's just about sleep, that he's going to do a quick referral over to sleep and they're doing a quick sleep eval, but we may not get them looking at sort of some of the other changes you've mentioned that you've noticed sometimes. And then sometimes they don't seem to be bothering you. But it's sort of like getting the whole can of worms looked at, but not too much at once. So I agree that sort of focusing in that sleep is something that you're worried about. Mm-hmm. But not forgetting that there were some other things and not getting them too focused just on the sleep.
So can we like write this down? or something,
I
or-
think that's probably what I think we should sort of identify sort of some things that you've noticed lately that is why you're worried about your sleep. I mean, you know you're not sleeping well. And let's describe what that is, because we'll lay down the things you've talked about with the sleep. But where you've seen that play out, like what are some things where that's caused some trouble? Like, for instance, you find like you don't have the energy you should, and you're snapping at people. So your emotions are a little more on the surface.
Yeah.
And you tend to feel sadder than you used to.
Now I can't think.
And you can't think. So you're having a hard time being quick and sharp, and you've always been quick and sharp. And so it could be sleep, but for sure it's something you've noticed since the sleep has become a problem.
Yeah. Well, can I ask you a favor then?
Yeah.
I know you and you told me
Yeah.
that my daughter hired you. So how much of this do you have to tell her?
How much do you feel like it would be helpful for her to know?
I would kind of like to get things checked out without her knowing.
Okay. Would it be okay to share with her that we are going to get some things checked out? Because I think she's worried. I mean, and that's the main thing, is I think she's concerned that you're ignoring something. I don't think you're ignoring something. I think we're going to deal with it, and letting her know that we're dealing with this, that we're starting to work on this. I think that might be important for her to hear.
Yeah, well, so, yeah, I guess that would be okay. We could.
Okay, so do you want us to call her now so you can hear the kind of conversation, or do you want to have the conversation with her, or do you want me to?
No, I want you to be there, because.
Okay, so do you want to call her, or do you want me to call her?
Can we just do it together?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Do you want to do that now?
Yeah.
So we're going to go and we're going to get sleep as our primary concern, but we are going to identify some of the symptoms. Can we share that with her, or do you just want to share that we're going to go get stuff looked at?
You know what? So why don't we just share the basic stuff, and if you want to tell her those other details, I mean, go ahead. But I just don't.
Okay.
She's going to get all nerved up, which is going to get me all nerved up.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go see her doctor, and we're going to get things started, which is the thing she wanted, and so we're working on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, let's just call her then.
Okay.
So what did that do for everybody?
So it's interesting because one of the conversations we had at some point during this webinar was, does she have anyone to help be the support person for this lady to go and see a provider? And it seemed like you are now that person. You're that in-between person. It doesn't have to be the daughter anymore. It's now you, and you've taken on that role.
Yeah, because what the daughter has really identified is the two of them are in two different places with their needs, and they're going to need, one is going to need, the other one's going to need. And so what has to happen is they can't help each other right now, because they're both there have been so many changes for both of them that they can't actively support one another. Every time they try to come together to talk about things, their own sense of change and need are starting to interfere with their ability to be together. So adding the third party in is really making a big difference. The daughter knows mom's getting something, which is what something's moving. Mom is moving as fast as mom can move. And we're actually making some significant progress. But the daughter isn't going to get to be part of that yet. But we're getting there. We're going to get mom through some stuff, and then we can help the daughter. But it always has to be with mom's permission. And you can talk to her later. I just don't want to hear you say it, was the bottom line. And so that kind of stuff has to be monitored carefully. But with her permission, we can start to build a triad. And then as the daughter's needs are starting to get met, I don't need to be involved anymore. They can go back to being a duo with some support, and they're back to supporting one another. But right now they can't do it because what they need is so intense, both of them. The daughter needs to know her mom's safe, and her mom needs to feel like she's herself again. And that's a tall order for a family member.
Right. And I was going to say, would we also be helping the daughter at this point to
Absolutely.
to get her knowledge up and stuff?
Yeah. So those are separate conversations, but for sure, tell me a little bit about what you know about this thing called dementia versus depression or anxiety and stress. So we need to build the daughter's skill set up a little bit, but separate from the conversations with mom, and figuring out where she can get some of that stuff in the way she likes to get it. So, well, I'll say thanks to everybody for being here. And even though it was an impromptu for some of you to get so involved, I want to thank folks for getting involved, because I think it gave us a platform to actually talk about some important shifts in thinking when it comes to dementia and medical providers, particularly for people who don't necessarily want to go see a medical provider. And my aim was to take the lid off and say, well, why is it we're pushing them in a doctor's office unless they're acutely ill? And maybe what we need to recognize is they need better support before you move them forward. And so do families. And that's a missing piece. So thanks, Corey. And thanks everybody for being here. Take care.